Welcome to another episode of Mystique Femininity. In today's podcast, we're going to get into a subject that will be pretty near and dear to my heart, but is something that often is spoken about, but very poetically, never in a direct sense. And I believe in all my subjects there is a need to unpack the feminine, which is very much the intuitive, very much the flowery. But as being someone who's very much on a path of integration, there is the much benefit of the masculine and being able to give something that's very linear, very direct, very pointed, that you can actually use in a direct way, but also being very much integrated and appreciative to what is of the feminine. There are women out there who over explain everything. And in this episode, I want to call this the woman who stops explaining herself. There is a moment in a woman's life when she has to acknowledge and recognize that she is exhausted. And this exhaustion is not coming from a source of doing too much, but is actually because she's explaining too much. She's explaining her choices. She's explaining her boundaries. She's explaining why her life doesn't look the way others expect it to. Now, this episode is not about confidence. It is about your own sovereignty and owning your sovereignty, your authority, the fact that you are source energy and understanding how that can feel very uncomfortable, especially if you have been programmed to believe and to give away your sovereignty in order to be palatable, to be under the illusion of safety. Because sometimes that can be hyper dysregulating when you have done and contorted yourself in so many ways, yet you still find yourself in places, in positions, in relationships that are not safe. Your authority, your sovereignty begins the moment that you stop trying to codify yourself, translate yourself for people who are not responsible for your life, honestly. Truly, you are responsible for all that is within your reality. Now, that is not to sidestep the systemic structures that are in place, but on there are levels to this, and you have to also acknowledge your part in it. The moment that you say, you know what, enough is enough, I'm not gonna, this is what I want, and that's it, then without explaining, without having to do a 10-page PowerPoint presentation, you will begin to feel such a enrichment. You'll be able to breathe a lot deeper because now you're operating in the most efficient manner. Because I look at people who say that they have haters. It's a weird concept to me, and it's always been a weird concept to me. And those that may say copy them, I look at it weirdly because if you are source, you essentially you have the teacher's manual. So you don't just have the literature, you have the answers and the answer key. You have all the extra enrichment, the depth, the nuggets. And so anyone who's watching can only take notes from you. And they're always going to be 10 steps behind because you have the source. And so the moment that you begin to operate in that way, the better your life will become. Now, to hit some of the core areas, women have been trained early to explain as a form of safety. I also look at this as a way of surveillance. This is throughout our history, this need to overshare and to tell what you're doing, where you're doing it, how you're doing it. And we do it in such an insidious way that, and very covertly, we often are participating in it willingly. We think this is the way to be. And those that may not participate in such creates this sense of mysteriousness. And then people go out of their way to try to unlock the code. What is she hiding? But we don't do that to the masculine. We don't do that to men. We do that to women. If you can make yourself understandable, palatable, reasonable, you could potentially think that you could avoid punishment, rejection, or abandonment. Because maybe what you want for your life is something very controversial for the groups of people that you are in. And as a human being living in this human experience, there is a wiring of wanting to be connected to community. It is natural. It is okay. However, that oftentimes means that we will either prevent ourselves, delay ourselves, or just outright reject ourselves of what we want in our true desires and our true nature. This explaining is not clarity. I want to make sure that's very understood. It's not that you're explaining yourself to make sure that there's clarity for others around you. You are doing it as a way of psychological safety, that people understand what you're doing and feeling understood on a subconscious level because of our programming makes us feel better. We feel like we're integrated into the world. When in actuality, when you are sharing, people then can potentially use that against you, especially if what you are sharing starts to activate them. And oftentimes people are unaware of their trigger points. And so they don't know what's activating them. And they participate in behaviors that can be very violent, and that violence can go from the spectrum of, the passive aggressiveness or to the more outright hardcore trying to sabotage you. There is all the gamut and in between. But clarity is not what you're gaining when you're over explaining. Explaining is often, though, a survival strategy that outlives its usefulness. As a woman, you become more mature, things start to shift. You begin to realize that being understood by everyone is actually fundamentally impossible because people can only understand where they have met themselves. So if they have not done deeper work, therefore they definitely can't understand you. And you being what you are will be very scary to them. It would feel very outside of the programming. If you talk to a woman who is still very enriched and in depth into the societal expectations and programming, and you have gone through a great deal of transformation, you will scare her. You will make her very uncomfortable. She will feel that you're weird, that you're an alien, and will probably try to run away from you. Or if they're very hostile, they may try to come at it from a point of reason to try to reason with you to reconsider whatever thought you had. Because unfortunately, our society, we're also very entrenched in misogyny. I find misogyny of woman to woman to be excessively violent because it is another woman saying to another woman that what you believe or think or want is completely heinous, and therefore you should not do this in order for you to stay within the conceptual bubble of what they see as what a woman's place is or what a woman can do. You will eventually also understand that some decisions are not up for debate. We're not debating that. If you are in a situation where you are unhappy, be it a job, be it an intimate relationship or a platonic relationship, maybe it's a business venture you want to go about. Maybe it's moving across the country, moving out of your current country, whatever you can think of. If it is something that you want to do, this is not up for debate. It's not up for discourse. It is what it is. You should go actively figure out a way to make that thing a reality. Some choices do not require context. I love it when I see a woman say, "This is what I'm going to be. No further context will be provided." And that's that. Like, that's on Mary Had a Little Lamb. We're done. And there's a certain level of autonomy, a level of sovereignty, authority over your life when you begin to move in such ways. Some of your truths do not need to be witnessed. It is sometimes very hard when you have had a lot of transformation, a lot of insights come to you, and you may want to run and share it. And as someone who's done that in the past, thinking that I was being of help to others by sharing, it actually was detrimental to myself because it began to plant a seed of insecurity and my conscious mind that what I was saying was crazy or too out there or incorrect, when in actuality, often the source will give you the book, the manual, but did not privy other individuals into it. Your purpose was to take the manual and execute, not necessarily go and share in hopes that other people will see what you're doing and celebrate you. And, that is unfortunately the realities of living in this human experience. And the more that you can accept that and move forward, the better. Now, it's not to say that you can't share your truths in the future. It could be after you've done whatever it is necessary. Could be that you wanted to start a business and it's maybe something that's a little taboo. You've done the thing and now you can share those nuggets of truth later, but you've already done the thing. Silence, when chosen consciously, is a boundary. So, what I mean is that sometimes we give the silent treatment, and the silent treatment is not an authority. That is a manipulation sort of tactic. But silence, when it is used consciously, like I've said what I've said, nothing else needs to be said. It's done. So sometimes when we give our affirmations, we write our affirmations down, we have some issues with those affirmations because we are hoping that we'll get confirmation from those, affirming of those things. And that's not necessary. If you say that I don't allow myself to date men who do X or don't do Y, then your silence is necessary. That is a boundary. And if you are presented with such thing that you don't do, your silence or not reacting to said presentation is a boundary. So if you say, hey, I don't date men who have children, and a guy with 8 kids comes to you, you're not reacting, not responding is enough. Just what it is. It could be that I don't engage with men who don't offer me gifts and boundaries. Okay, so if a guy comes and he bulldozes your boundaries and doesn't offer you anything, then at that point, you can happily choose silence. Now, I also want to mention that boundaries are not walls. As someone who is wrapping up their master's in social work and very much entrenched in the notion of protect my peace, I believe this particular subject matter has gone way off the grid and off the rails. Protecting your peace was never to be used in a weaponized manner. It was a way for you to own the fact that you deserve peace and you do have to actively protect it, but it is not to be used as a wall. What happens when we allow walls to come into our way? We are not able to receive nourishment. We are not able to receive healthy connection, and we do need those aspects. But your boundaries should be a very much declaration of self-trust. You trust yourself, and therefore you have the desire and right to have boundaries around you. Now, to move into a little bit more depth here, the feminine does not need to be proven. We live in a world that, unless you are able to provide evidence-based, expert-based knowledge or confirmation or some study to back what you feel, that you need to prove yourself. And as someone who is in the academia area, That is often very, very true. There's a lot of things that I just know because I know. And that unfortunately doesn't fly for academia and corporate world. You have to be able to prove everything it is. And this comes into play with the feminine very deeply because the feminine is not often respected in our society. So, with that, it means that we are constantly having to try to explain ourselves. And the moment that you stop explaining is the moment that you will begin to recalibrate your energy in a way that is most efficient and restorative to you. You step out of negotiation with the world, baby, you have now become very much key to yourself. You now are your own golden source when you stop trying to tell the world what you are, when you just be, you are just is. Because the feminine is just is. She is. Nothing else needs to be said. We can add some additional colors and context and decoration, but it's not necessary. It's just that. It's like that girl. Done. Case closed. We can move along. Now, you may be wondering, how can I actually make this practical? And so I want to leave a few prompts for you to munch on over the next week. Where am I still explaining myself instead of deciding? Where am I still explaining instead of deciding? Are you someone who may be a daddy's girl and you feel like you need to go tell daddy everything that you're feeling and sensing and desiring in hopes that he will affirm it? Now, this relationship could be not just a father daughter, but could be husband boyfriend. It could be friend. It could be your work. It could be a number of ways, but really sit with that notion of like, where do I still explain overly so? Number two, what choice in my life no longer needs defense? This could be very explosive depending on how your life is. So maybe you have decided that you aren't going to marry, you don't want to marry, but you still feel anytime it's poked on, you go into an Olympic gold medalist level of explaining. It might be time for you to sit that down, but that can be applied to a lot in our lives. What choice in your life is no longer needs defense? And number three, what would change if I let my actions speak without commentary? How would you be able to navigate the world if you just let the clip unlock without all the extra? You just did. I can say on many different levels, this can feel very, very enriching and is restorative and just highly nourishing when you just decide, I'm just going to insert blank. I'm just going to go ahead and create the podcast. I'm going to write the book. I'm going to change my appearance. I'm going to dump this dumb boy, whatever it is. I'm going to change careers. I'm going to learn to do XYZ. And you're not doing it where you're hoping someone asks you questions so that you can explain, so that you can be seen in a certain way. This is because you have made your comfort level and your sovereignty be the reigning force in your life. And you are the one calling the shots. Now, as I close this out, you are not here to be understood by everyone because not everyone is able to grasp every single thing. There are some people that I see in the world that I truly am perplexed by. And instead of being angry by it, I just say, you know what? That just wasn't my ministry for this lifetime. And I move on about my way. There are people that will see me and will never be able to appreciate all that I am. And that's perfectly okay. It's not my job to try to force someone to see me and to understand me. As someone who is very much a mixture of things, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the effort that I've put in over the years to try to help people understand what I am was pretty futile. And if anything, energy and time away from what I should have been doing because I was trying so much to help people understand my drive or the pain that I've encountered and why that makes me want to do XYZ. Or I want to change my appearance. And why am I so hardcore about wanting to look like XYZ? I put a lot of effort, a lot of energy, resources into trying to create a sales pitch, if you will, to my existence. And the moment that I just woke up to the fact that, hey, a lot of people haven't met themselves at the level that you have. That's not a drag on the person, nor is it a drag on me in the sense of I'm somehow better. It's just what is. It's just the reality. And living in the reality of who I am is much more gratifying. You are here to belong to your own life. If you encounter a woman who is oversharing or trying to explain herself to you, I would love for you to do her a great honor. One, share her this podcast, but two, let her know that she doesn't need to do that. It will feel uncomfortable. She may come with 50 other reasons why she has to explain. But if you can affirm her in her own sovereignty, you have done a really great job of working within the divine feminine. Because one of the aspects of the divine is for us to reflect the light that is within them. We are to do our work, and part of that is to be a reminder to other feminine beings. If you enjoyed this episode, if it resonated with you in any sort of way, I would love it if you could rate this podcast on whatever platform you're on, share this with a friend, and until next time, make sure you're enjoying your best life.